Hi guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Lorena. I'm an astrologer, and in this video we are going to have a look at Ariana Grande's birth chart. I am so excited about this because, well, I just know that she's a wonderful soul and her energy is absolutely lovely. I don't know much about her life, so I'm going into this a little bit bare. I don't necessarily listen to her music, although I know that her music is really good for manifestation and her music generally has a very high vibration. Um, but apart from that, I don't know much about her life, so we are going to go through this a little bit blind. But yeah, this is her birth chart. If you don't know, I'm using horoscopes.astro-c.com. So this is the website that I recommend, especially if you're a beginner. It has some very color friendly associations, and I cannot recommend this enough. But yeah, we are going to look at this placement. Alrighty, so first of all, I usually start by looking at the sun sign. And just in general, her sun sign is in Cancer, and we know that the sun represents the core of a person's ego, the core of a person's values. So we are multidimensional beings, right? We have a soul, we have lived many past lifetimes, and the energy of the sun can show what are the truest values that our ego experiences in this life. And hers is in Cancer, right? So because she was born during the Cancer season, she's going to have a lot of Cancer values that she guides her life, throughout her path. Cancer energy is stereotypically the mother, which is why she always appears like a very kind soul. Cancer is very loving. Of course, every zodiac sign has pros and cons, but when you live in a higher vibrational state, you show the good side of that zodiac sign, and her sun in Cancer is going to make her someone very maternal. Now, her sun is also in the sixth house, which is the house of health, services, routine. So it is interesting because the sixth house, being the Virgo house, by default, Virgo is intercepted in her birth chart. So we are using Placidus system. As you can see, no houses starting Virgo. So there is a double-edged sword over here. Definitely her sun in the sixth house feels like a calling to have a routine, or for her life to be of service to others, for there to be Virgo energy in her life. But because Virgo is intercepted, it feels like maybe sometimes she's struggling to be practical enough to pursue those ideas, or whenever she's trying to take action, there's a lot of energy that gets her to start things but not necessarily to finish them. And we can also see that because she has a lot of cardinal energy in her chart. So she has Cancer and Libra as dominant energies. Capricorn is also cardinal energy, so definitely a lot of cardinality happening here. And cardinal energies are very good at starting things, okay? And we have the fixed signs to put in the work. We got the fixed signs to put in a lot of meticulous research, which is why the fixed signs are oftentimes very stubborn. And the mutable energies are all about getting things done, so actually bringing some finality, like Virgo energy, right? Very good at finalizing things. Also, we have got Gemini as a mutable energy too. So all of these placements are very good at bringing finality. However, because she has so much cardinal energy, it feels like there's a focus with the sun in the sixth house to have a routine, to keep organized, but there's not like a clear route as to how to get there. Right, now we see there are a lot of aspects happening to the sun, so I want to look at the very first red one happening, which is a square. So a square aspect to her moon conjunct Jupiter. Now this is what I think provides her with such a professional external aura. I know that the moon signs in general does not correlate with external appearance. We look at the ascendant for that, and there's a lot of kindness in her aura coming from her ascendant placement too, but the moon usually does give a lot of an external impression when it's conjunct Jupiter. And the moon, first of all, being in Libra means that she's seeking a lot of harmony around her, And Libra energy is all about, things being balanced. So usually people with moon in Libras do not like having a lot of drama around them, and they try to avoid it as much as possible. So definitely would think that she's definitely not confrontational type of person. I mean, she wouldn't seek drama, at least in her life. Now, the Jupiter placement over here, Jupiter is all about expansion and luck and optimism. And whatever Jupiter touches, it brings a lot of amplifying energy to it. Now, sometimes this is not a good thing, right? So if you have a very stubborn placement in your chart and you put Jupiter on top of that, it just exaggerates its energy. But this moon being here in Libra, it feels like she would go over, she would just try so much to bring balance into her life, because this is what brings her luck as well. Jupiter is an indicator of luck too. Now, Libra is also an energy of the businesswoman, so definitely people who know how to communicate with others on a one-on-one personal level have Libra energy in her chart. The 7th house also correlates to Libra energy, and she has Mercury here, so definitely people with Mercury in the 7th house are stars are knowing how to communicate in a way that the other person feels comfortable, because Mercury's in the 7th house are very intuitive when it comes to feeling the energy of the other person. And Mercury in Cancer just amplifies that energy, right? Cancer is the zodiac sign of intuition, of the mother. And what does the mother do? The mother instinctively feels what the other person needs. So there is an element here of she instantly knows who's right, who's wrong, but she doesn't necessarily, bring that into conflict. She just listens carefully. And oftentimes this energy, if you live in a lower vibrational state, you can be very manipulative. So a lot of, serial killers and a lot of people who do bad things do tend to have Cancer energy, because if you're not in touch with your Cancer energy, you can, really misunderstand it and use it for the worst, right? Because it provides you with such a great understanding of the people around you. You can use it in ways in which you can manipulate them because they feel comfortable in your presence, but then, you do something wrong and deceive them. Now, that's definitely the negative side of things, and every person has a choice of what they make out of their birth chart. But it does look like, because of this Jupiter placement, she does have that generosity element, which makes it very less likely for her to be a bad person. Yeah. Now, looking at the 9th house, so she has the moon, she has a Jupiter in the 9th house. This is very good for learning, so she's definitely open to learning and to traveling. Jupiter in the 9th house also makes some very smart people, because she's always open to new knowledge coming through. The Wheel of Fortune also shows us that she karmically has to focus on being harmonious in her relationships with people on one hand, because that's what Libra energy is about. It's about harmony. So she's like the bearer of harmony. She brings harmony. She brings balance and justice into the world just by her presence. But there's also this element of travel. So she would have to travel around the world to show this Libra energy so that she can, claim that luck in her life. Alrighty, so I'm going to talk a little bit about her external appearance, but then I want to move on to the challenges that she's facing, because every person will have some challenges. And before that, I wanted to look at the rising. And oh my God, does she have a Neptune conjunct Uranus on top of her ascendant? Probably if you don't know much about astrology, you're going to be like, what is that? Neptune and Uranus are generational placements, so they move really slowly. So they're in Capricorn, but we really do not care that much. This is definitely a trait of her generation. But the fact that they're on top of the rising, the ascendant moves 1 degree every 4 minutes throughout the day. So if she were to be born like just 4 minutes later, this conjunction would no longer happen. This conjunction would no longer take place. So it's something very, very specific, not only to her date of birth and time of birth, but also to her location. Because if she were to be born at the exact same time, but in a different city, this conjunction would also not take place. So I find that very strikingly important. Neptune, first of all, is the planet of idealism and dreaminess. And anyone who has a Neptune on top of their ascendant, it's like you're a Pisces. You channel information whether you like it or not, and that is seen on your external aura. So physically, Neptune gives you somewhat of an extraterrestrial outlook almost, right? So you do have some very unique traits, or you do look like a cartoon character sometimes. It does definitely make you very beautiful, but from an intuitive perspective, it also provides her with a lot of instinct as to, is this person right for me? Is this person not right for me? Uranus on top of her ascendant also brings a lot of unconventionality in her external appearance. So oftentimes when you have a Uranus here, you tend to shock people with your appearance, or there's something that you do that people think, oh my god, this is either extremely weird or this is extremely nice. So them being both together on top of the ascendant and also in Capricorn, this gives her a note of seriosity on her external appearance. So her rising being in Capricorn gives her a very serious outlook, but again, because the Cancer energy is backing her up, she's like a serious, kind woman. Capricorn rules the bones also, so I think she's quite skinny, right? Capricorn placements are oftentimes skinny. Capricorn ascendants tend to be quite skinny, but also if not, the people with Capricorn risings tend to have like very prominent cheekbones or collarbones, or the kneecaps tend to be quite big. So there's this element of how do you say, right? Bones being very well defined. Alrighty, moving on. So challenges. What are the challenges in this life? Well, first of all, the challenges are oftentimes correlated with the hard placements, hard aspects in her chart. The very first one that I'm looking at is her Chiron, which is representing the healing work that she has to do. Now, Chiron is also a generational placement, so it stays for a couple of years in a zodiac sign. It is currently in Aries, so by the way, if you have any Aries placements, especially around the 9th or 10th degree, during this time it could be feeling a little bit like you got a lot of healing to do. But Chiron being in Leo, maybe we don't care about that as much. I do see though that her past lifetime energy is very focused around Leo energy, and her sun is at a Leo degree, so there is something here still. But I'm very focused first of all on her Chiron being in the 7th house. The 7th house is the house of relationships, and it's also forming some very interesting aspects to her Venus, so there is a square happening. I feel like relationships for her will reveal her deepest fears. And I do recall that I think she dated Mac Miller, and I think they broke up, and I know that there was, he sadly passed away. So that was possibly, one event in which some of those fears could have been revealed. But in general, when you have a Chiron in the 7th house, you tend to date a couple of people which maybe you don't fit with them, and that's fine. The native who has a Chiron in the 7th house isn't always bothered by having to date a lot of people in order to get to the right person. But it's important that lessons are being taken from each relationship so that she grows, because otherwise you would end up going through a lot of relationships through this exact same patterns. If you do not take the lessons from it, you end up repeating the patterns quite a lot. With Venus in Taurus, she does have a desire for stability in a relationship, so it's not like she's rebelling against having the right person around her. It's just the lessons will come through her one-to-one partnerships. Now, Venus in Taurus also is in the 4th house, so just as a side note, the 4th house is the house of the home environment and the family. This usually means a pretty nice ability to make your home a very welcoming home. People with Venus in their 4th house are very good at nurturing others and taking care of others. So I would definitely like to visit her home. I think she, especially with the Cancer energy, she would make people feel very, very welcome in her presence. But again, from a love perspective, this will bring some fears and revelations, because she does tend to be a little bit protective with what is hers. Lilith and Saturn in the 2nd house, this can show, for the extreme cases, this can show quite a lot of greed. I don't think that's the case. I think this is definitely making her a little bit protective of her, what is hers. And if someone takes advantage of her values or her materials, she's very kind, but at the same time, I would imagine if someone just takes advantage of what she's done, she would definitely show her claws in one way or the other. And that's absolutely fine, but it can also come from a place of fear, right? So there might be some lessons around the fact that things do not necessarily need to be stable throughout her life, and that she will need to embrace that in order to advance. Saturn in the second house can also show that around her Saturn return, which will happen when she turns 30 years old, because Saturn is at 0 degrees in Pisces, she will get some lessons around mental health and how she can become more aware of how she's spiritually channeling a lot of ideas. And I definitely see her coming up with a new business venture around that time, or a business venture really, really kicking off because of her ability, to be connected to divinity almost. So she is channeling a lot of her ideas, whether she knows it or not. But there's going to be some lessons around her values, around her money, which will come through in about a year and a half from now. So definitely interested to see what happens, but I wouldn't be worried about it. Definitely there could be some lessons around, actually following through with the routine and pursuing a business venture from beginning to end, not just coming up with ideas. So maybe that's what the lesson will be focused around, but I definitely think that she'll do great, because it just seems like she has that motivation within her, right? We don't see this in birth charts. We don't know how a native will act with their potential. Some people know what their potential is and they just go for it, they just do it. But others are like, okay, am I actually meant to be doing this? La, la, la. So they don't actually, realize their potential, and sometimes they need additional guidance. But it does seem like just by looking at her energy, she knows what she is doing. So what other challenges are we seeing here? So I was looking at her 10th house, because obviously the 10th house is one of the most important when we talk about celebrities. The 10th house can show social status, right? It can show how you come off to others on a career level. So when you have your business mask on, how do you come off to the people around you? And Scorpio energy is very hidden. It's very mysterious. Now, the 10th house, watch this out. This also correlates to father figure. So it is quite likely that, she didn't fully understand her father, or her father figure was a little bit mysterious from her. So this oftentimes is the case for people who don't have a good relationship with their fathers, or who don't have their fathers around so much. So things like, parents divorcing, or having to live with just one parent and the other one being a little bit more secretive. So this is the kind of patterns that we look for. And this energy of how she saw her father growing up is going to be transformed into her own social status, because we do tend to assimilate the way that we see our fathers with how we want us to appear on a social status level. And by the way, if you are in a family that is not like the conventional mother father, or if your parents are of the same sex or transgender, or they are non-binary at all, we correlate the 10th house with the parent that is more authoritative, or who has more divine masculine energy, and we correlate the 4th house energy with the parent that usually takes on the roles of being more maternal or showing their more maternal instinct. So if you have two dads, it doesn't mean that you see both of them as the 10th house energy. You could see one of them with the 10th house and the other one with the 4th house, but ultimately it correlates with who was the authoritative figure in your home environment, and who was the person that was actually providing you with that safe space, nurturing space. So yeah, just a side note over there. But yes, now the 10th house also correlates with your social status and public image, and the mask that you put on. And Scorpionic energy is all about hidden things, right? Scorpio loves to be a little bit mysterious, which is why she's oftentimes I don't know, have you noticed that she has this aura about her that is like very magnetic? And that definitely comes from her rising too, but the scorpionic energy, and Ian Somerhalder also has the same placement, right? There's something almost sexual about their external appearance, which doesn't have to be taken, in a not safe for work discussion area. I just think that a lot of people could be sexually attracted to her on a social status because of her magnetic external aura. Now, a Pluto over here in the 10th house can also show us that as part of her career, she's going to be very strongly willed. Pluto in the 10th house definitely shows when it comes to authority, when it comes to dealing with even institutions, where you can have this element of transformation. Now, Pluto can also be a very karmic placement, and it can show where you really have to transform. So definitely correlating with her south node energy and her north node energy, does feel like she has to take on a more a social status role, where she has to transform society, and she has to transform her relationship with being famous, right? With being in the public eye. And by dealing with authorities, or by dealing with being in the public eye, by dealing with being famous, it seems like she is also overcoming some karmic fears of, am I really going to make it? Am I worth it to be successful in my career, and so on and so forth. Right. So moving on, her past life and her life direction energy. Her south node is one of the elements that we look for when trying to understand her past life energy, and it is in Gemini. It is in the 5th house as well. I just wanted to note the fact that she had a launch. I think she launched REM Beauty, which honestly I'm so excited to try it out, but I'm not in the US, and it's really difficult to get anything from the US into here. But I really watched a lot of her reviews, and I was so amazed by the aesthetic of everything. Anyway, I'll explain why in a second. So the north node on the sky during this year, during 2021, was transiting Sagittarius, and the south node implicitly was transiting Gemini. Sorry, it's the other way around. Sorry, the north node was transiting Gemini, and the south node was transiting Sagittarius. Now, this type of transit usually implies that there's a realignment with the soul purpose. So a lot of things that she's done this year have been in accordance with maybe a calling, right? Or she's also borrowed some of her past life energy into this life. Now, just because of the whole intuitive placements that we see here, because of this Neptune on top of her ascendant, I think that I'm not 100% convinced, but I don't think she's necessarily lived on Earth. I think she could be a star seed, and that she's very intuitive, and the aesthetic of her makeup is space. And I was like, oh my god, like that's so cool. I didn't know her birth chart before, but when I looked at her chart, I was like, wow, there's a lot of spacey energy, and she does have a lot of Pleiadian degrees in her chart. Just looking, 26, 27, 28, and 29th degrees are degrees for people who have lived in the Pleiades. So it could be a case that she has some of that inspiration coming from that place. Also, Pleiadians do tend to be very very focused on bringing innovation and bringing technology, which I'm not, convinced she isn't really focused around that. However, technology also means the communication with the other realms, right? And her music is like one-on-one manifestation. I don't know if you've listened, like that song, I Want It, I Got It. If you just listen to it a couple of times a day and you sing it, you're basically manifesting. And when I first heard that song, I wasn't that much into manifestation. I didn't know that much about all of this, how do you attract your ideal reality thingy. But it is oftentimes the case that when you repeat an affirmation a lot of the times, and when you listen to the right vibration of music that raises your vibration levels, you start to believe that that is what you deserve. But when I first listened to that song, I was like, why did she create a song where she's showing off her wealth, right? And anybody who lives in scarcity mindset would think the same thing. Like, why did she do this song? Why to show off? No, she did it as an instrument for all of us to learn to manifest, and that is technology. Technology is not just what we know, right? Technology is also the ability to manifest, to communicate with the spiritual realm. So I think that's literally what is shown in her birth chart too. Her North Node is in the 11th house, which is the house of Aquarius, society, friendships. And her North Node being in the 11th house shows that as part of her soul purpose, she has to transform her creative abilities, right? South Node in the 5th house shows that she's naturally very creative, very entertaining. She has to transform those abilities in a way in which she brings some sort of benefit to society. And the 11th house also correlates to technology, so through some form of technology communication, right? And Steve Jobs, he also had, not Steve Jobs, my bad. John Nash had a South Node in his 5th house and a North Node in his 11th house. And John Nash, if you do not know, he was a mathematician, an extraordinary person. He was very good at mathematics. The 5th house does correlate to the creative power of solving problems as well, by the way. So he had a natural ability coming from his early childhood and from his past lifetimes to solve a lot of problems. And his North Node being in the 11th house basically was telling us that he had a sole purpose to help people, help society through his abilities. So he came up with the Nash equilibrium, which was very transformative for economy, and that was the sole purpose achieved. Now, for Ariana, this is slightly differently done, right? Especially because the Jupiter in Libra, the Moon in Libra, both conjunct, are trining and sextiling the lunar nodes. So this is, her balanced and harmonious and desire for harmony in the world placement is what is causing her to move towards the soul purpose. That is her motivation to move towards her soul purpose. So I feel like her music doesn't just serve as entertainment, because that's a very South Node type of energy. I think it's also serving as a way in which she brings help to society. I think her music is therapeutic. And saying this, I just realized that I need to listen to her music a little bit more. So yeah, definitely recommend. I think that's a very, very beautiful energy. And also, just because there's a lot of Sagittarius energy involved, her North Node being in Sagittarius, I think also traveling will be a major theme. Usually when you have a North Node in Sagittarius, you have to become an old soul, or you're at least taking steps towards becoming an old soul. So there could be some very intense lessons regarding, the meaning of life or higher learning. So I do feel like through reading or through traveling, through seeing a lot of cultures, she will get there closer to her soul purpose as well. And also the relationship healing that she's doing will also be another instrument which will provide her with a lot of life lessons. But I think she's doing the right thing by outputting, what she's going through, and she's outputting her manifestation mantras in her music, because people become more connected and more confident in their own issues and in their own, relatable life lessons. So yeah, I think that's pretty much what I wanted to say. I know I've conveniently skipped this Mars over here. I just wanted to say Mars is the planet of the tribe. I don't think this is such an important planet for her. I think it's actually an isolated planet for her, just because, Mars is traditionally a planet that males identify with and that feel comfortable with. And her Mars can speak about how she takes action and drive. But it's interesting, it's in Virgo, which is definitely very determined to get things done. However, I did mention that she has some challenges around this energy. So I feel like she may not 100% resonate with the idea of her Mars in Virgo, but as she goes throughout her life and as she will go through her Saturn return and she gets some lessons around money, she will eventually get more comfortable with her masculinity and how that Mars in Virgo actually behaves. So yeah, conveniently skipped that out. But yeah, that is pretty much what I wanted to say about Ariana Grande's birth chart. So I hope you guys enjoy this. If you really like this and if you want to see more of this, make sure that you click the like button, subscribe, and I will see you in other videos. If you want me to look at other celebrities' birth chart, make sure that you comment that down below. But apart from that, I wish you guys absolutely all the best, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.